Have you ever had that persistent, silent feeling that you are wasting your life? No matter how hard you try to keep yourself busy, surrounded by people, goals, obligations, deep down, it feels like something essential is missing. As if you are merely existing, not truly living. A ghost haunting the hallways of your own existence. Perhaps you have tried to explain this feeling. Maybe a doctor has called it anxiety or depression. Perhaps they prescribed something to silence that discomfort, a pill in the morning, another at night. And time goes by, numbing what you should be urgently listening to. The scream is muffled, but the prison remains. But what if I told you that this suffering is not a mistake? What if I told you that your pain is not a pathology to be cured, but a calling to be answered? Carl Gustav Jung, one of the greatest names in depth psychology, believed that what we often call a mental disorder is not an illness in the traditional sense. It is an attempt by the psyche to heal itself. It is a desperate, violent alarm bell, a warning that the life you are living does not serve your soul. You may be living a routine that was imposed on you, a job that consumes you, relationships that drain your energy, dreams that aren't even yours. Meanwhile, your essence, your true self, screams for freedom. But no one taught you to listen to that scream. The contrary, they taught you to silence it, to function, to adapt, to not disturb. And so, you become ill in silence, while the world applauds your productivity. This is where Jung comes in. For him, healing does not come from denial, but from diving in. It is not about masking the symptoms, but understanding the sacred language they're trying to speak. Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. Carl Jung let that sink in. Legitimate suffering. This implies there is a kind of suffering that is necessary, that is part of a healthy life. In other words, you are sick because you are running away from the pain you need to feel to transform your life. As long as you keep running, you will keep suffering, but in a barren, meaningless way. This video is not for those who want distraction. It is for those who are tired of pretending. For those who feel they are sinking, but still hold a spark of hope that there is a way. And there is. But it starts with a brutal decision to stop running and start listening. Listening to yourself. Listening to the unconscious. Listening to the pain you tried to silence with medication, with addictions, with routines. If you have made it this far, you may have already realized the emptiness you feel is not a weakness. It is the absence of yourself in your own life. And it is time to change. You've been feeling this way for days, weeks, maybe months. You go to the doctor. He listens to you for 15 minutes, if he listens at all. You talk about the insomnia, the anxiety, the tightness in your chest that appears for no reason, the constant feeling of being out of place, disconnected from your own existence. He nods, types a few words on the computer, and then comes the verdict: a chemical imbalance. Your existential cry, the deepest longing of your soul, has been reduced to a number on a prescription label, a problem of serotonin. What no one tells you is that this type of treatment is not interested in your soul. It is interested in your functionality. The logic is simple. You need to keep working, consuming, producing, keeping the gears of the system turning. The medication allows you to endure the unbearable. It makes the cage more comfortable, and that's why it is offered as a definitive solution. But this solution, as Jung said, is a trap. Jung believed that most modern neurosis does not arise from an internal failure of the brain, but from the disconnection between the life we lead and the life we should be living. When you ignore your vocation, your most authentic impulses, your inner truths, the soul begins to sicken. And since it has no literal voice, it speaks to the body and mind. Anxiety, panic attacks, hopelessness, chronic fatigue, strange obsessions. But instead of listening to these symptoms as messages, we are trained to treat them as enemies, to silence them, to neutralize any discomfort with chemicals, to return to normal as quickly as possible. But what is this normal? A job you hate but can't quit? Superficial relationships that serve to maintain appearances? Empty goals, mechanical routines, and a constant feeling that you are surviving instead of living? The anxiety you feel is not a failure. It is your soul telling you, this life is not yours. You are betraying me. And if you ignore this for too long, the body starts to scream louder. But the system is always ready with a new dose, a new label, a new sedative. And the more you adapt to this model, the further you distance yourself from yourself until you feel nothing anymore, neither pain nor pleasure. Just this chronic numbness they call adult life. The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown. Carl Jung, by medicating the symptom without understanding its root, we create an illusion of healing. The person improves on the outside, but inside remains lost. And in the long run, this division between what is felt and what is lived generates an even greater collapse. There is no way to escape the soul forever. It will demand its price, whether in the form of burnout, emotional collapses, or through an emptiness that nothing can fill. This mass medicalization is a reflection of something deeper. A culture that does not know how to deal with suffering, that fears pain because it has lost the sense of its transformative value. For Jung, suffering was necessary. It was the beginning of the journey. It was the call to individuation. Have you ever wondered why so many people are suffering emotionally, even when surrounded by material comfort and supposed freedoms? We have never had such access to information, entertainment, and stimuli. And at the same time, we have never been so disconnected from ourselves. The root of modern psychological suffering is not only within the mind, it is in the environment that shapes us from birth. Carl Jung understood this with brutal clarity. For him, the problem was not just individual, it was cultural, it was structural. We live in a society that glorifies appearance but neglects essence, that rewards efficiency but ignores the soul. From an early age, we are shaped to follow a script: study, choose a safe career, be productive, consume, smile for photos, and hide any signs of vulnerability. We grow up being taught to please, to compete, to win, but no one teaches us to listen to our intuition, to understand our feelings, to ask ourselves, what makes my life worth living? This absence of meaning is not a coincidence. It is programmed. We have been conditioned to believe that our identity comes from the outside, from the title we carry, the salary we receive, the approval we earn. But Jung knew that this is a fatal trap, because when the value you see in yourself depends on external standards, you are permanently exposed to frustration. And worse, you distance yourself from your inner nature, from your unconscious, from your soul. And that is where the emptiness begins to grow. Slowly, silently, it takes over your routine. You meet all the expectations, check off all the items on the list, but still feel out of place. You feel like you are living someone else's life. What you are feeling is not weakness. It is disconnection. Disconnection from what is true, spontaneous, and instinctive. And this disconnection, according to Jung, is what fuels the deepest psychological disturbances. But society does not want you to realize this. Because disconnected people are easier to control. They consume more, question less, follow orders without resistance. They are useful, docile, predictable. And when they finally collapse, when anxiety, depression, or burnout hit them hard, the system responds with palliatives, never with the truth. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung to heal. Jung said, the individual needs to confront the world that hurt them. They need to understand how they were conditioned, what was repressed, what was sacrificed in the name of acceptance. And this is a painful task because it involves admitting that you lived a life that was not yours. that you shaped yourself to fit into a mold that suffocated you, that you were domesticated by a culture that fears the human soul. But it is also the only way out, because only by recognizing the origin of your emptiness can you begin the journey to fill it with truth. And this journey has a name: individuation. There comes a moment in life when pain can no longer be ignored, when the social mask begins to weigh too heavily, when you realize you are living as a caricature of who you truly are. It is at this breaking point that, according to Carl Jung, the most important journey a human being can undertake begins: a journey of individuation. But what does it really mean? Jung was not talking about cheap self-help or small habit changes. He referred to a deep, almost mythical process in which the individual ceases to be a reflection of the external world and begins to become what they are in essence. It is when you stop being what others expect of you and start becoming what your soul is asking for. This process is not linear nor comfortable. Quite the opposite. It requires you to confront everything that has been repressed, ignored, or denied within yourself. What Jung called the personal unconscious reveals itself at this point. Unresolved traumas, suffocated desires, inherited beliefs that have never been questioned. And perhaps the most painful step is the encounter with the shadow, that dark, instinctive, chaotic side that you have learned to hide, the anger you never expressed, the envy you pretend not to feel, the impulses that shame you. Those who look outside dream, those who look inside awaken. Carl Jung. Looking inside means facing your shadow without masks, without excuses, without moralism. Why is this so important? Because the shadow, if ignored, controls you. But if integrated, it becomes a source of power, of authenticity, of vital energy. It is only possible to live a true life when you stop fighting against yourself and start reconciling with everything that inhabits you. The world says you need to improve. Jung said you need to become whole, no longer perfect, but real, no longer fitting in, but free. The healing you seek is not in fitting better into the world, but in aligning your inner world with the truth of your being. This process can be lonely, it can be arduous, but it is also the only one that offers real meaning. Why do so many people live distant from this journey? The answer lies in fear. The fear of change, the fear of loss, the fear of abandoning everything that is familiar, even if it is destructive. In the end, you either live anesthetized or you awaken. There is no middle ground. There comes a moment when you need to make a choice, the one that separates who you are from who you are conditioned to be, the commitment to your own soul. If you have made it this far, it is not by chance. Something inside you is awakening. It may still be a whisper, or it may already be screaming, but it is there. And this call will not disappear. I want to make you an invitation. If this video touched some part of you that was asleep, comment down below. Tell me, which of these ideas confronted you the most? Which truth hit you hard? Just putting this into words is already bringing light to the unconscious. And this is the beginning of liberation. Subscribe and continue this dive, because you are just at the beginning of what could be the greatest transformation of your life.